hump day. Sorry for the absences the last couple days. Scheduling problems. Russ was on the road. I was feeling a little bit under the weather. Rack was busy, so we couldn't get going. But we're now gonna be doing shows regularly Monday through Friday.
The Tang didn't work for you, Mike?
What's that?
The Tang didn't cure your cold?
Oh, I'm much better, but it just
I thought Tang prevented colds.
No, I only drink Tang when I have a cold. The vitamin C pumps into my veins, and it shortens them up. The thing is, everybody's got colds right now. Everybody. There's like a flu epidemic going on. Well, not you, but you're special. Okay, we won't take too long on this. We'll just vent. Hey, we're doing the pre-show. There's just a slight baseball thing here, and then
a couple of baseball things, so you will have to endure that.
And then we'll get into a hockey thing that I want your feedback on.
Yeah, that should be in the regular show. We should just do that.
The hockey thing, okay. Yeah. Well, all right, the baseball stuff. Obviously, the Baseball Hall of Fame yesterday made their inductions. Larry Walker, who there was some debate about it because the bulk of his career was in Colorado, where his numbers were inflated. But I think he's deserving.
It's arguable. Like again, Colorado helped his numbers, but he was a really good player in Montreal, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm happy for him. The funny thing was he put out a tweet about 2 hours before the voting saying, I think I'm going to fall a little bit short, but thank you for the support. And the votes were in by that point, so It didn't really matter. Now, obviously, the bug up my butt is about Derek Jeter, who got all but one vote from the baseball writers. Now, this is the thing. And Russ and I, being members of the Professional Hockey Writers Association, a couple years ago, there was a vote. There was a vote in the among the writers to make the voting transparent. It is in the Professional Hockey Writers Association for all the awards. They put out a list of who voted for who. I think that's fair, and I think if you vote for somebody who is sort of out of the norm, that you should defend it. Mm-hmm. Whoever this person is that kept Jeter off, he has every right to keep him off the ballot, but they don't have transparency this year. Next year apparently is the first year. I doubt that this guy is going to come out and reveal that he's the one who voted again, who did not put Jeter on the ballot. And because of that, I say he's a coward. Because honestly, if you're not going to justify why you don't put somebody who's fifth overall in career hits, had no blemishes on his record, was a Gold Glove winner, 5-time World Series champion, you're not going to justify why you voted not to have him included in the Hall of Fame. You're a coward.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Although when you called me yesterday, I told you there'd be one or two guys that wouldn't vote for him, and that's not because he's not deserving. It's because there's a bunch of idiots in the Baseball Writers Association. I mean, it's really that simple. But one thing, so Tom Verducci, who's not an idiot and he's a very respected writer, made a cardinal sin, and he wrote an article about Derek Jeter and stepped on Joe DiMaggio to try and heighten Derek Jeter.
Right.
And the comments were just really bad. He was like, well, he only played in 176 night games and was only in one televised World Series. And so basically trying to point out how Derek Jeter is a bigger star than Joe DiMaggio. Yeah. My answer to this is, and I don't want to diss Derek Jeter on his day. I am a Yankee hater, but not a Derek Jeter hater. I will say it like this. And I did this in the goal competition thing that we talked about, who's the best goal scorer, and I'll do it for this. They never made a song about Derek Jeter. They made a song about Joe DiMaggio.
Yeah, and I, like I pointed out to you this morning when we were talking about this, DiMaggio, I think he was not even inducted the first time he was eligible. It was the second year. And then I think he got 76 or 77%.
Which again is idiotic.
The thing is, and we know this because of Jim Rice and other Hall of Famers in other sports.
Fred Williams got 93%.
If you're mean to the media, they're going to get back at you. And DiMaggio was standoffish with the media. He was standoffish with the media after he married Marilyn Monroe. There were a lot of things between DiMaggio and the media that didn't go, and they got their revenge. But the guy missed 4 years of his career because of something called World War II. So
I think this rat is actually in Miami, and they don't like him in Miami because they don't like the job he's doing rebuilding the club. And even though he never played for Miami, that's where I feel the
And you may very well be right, but we probably will never know because I seriously doubt that this guy will come out and expose himself. If he does come out and expose himself and has a justifiable reason why he didn't include Jeter, I'm all for hearing that and listening to it, but there is no justifiable reason. So he's a coward. All right, we'll start the show.
All right. There you have it. More on that sport later. If you don't know about baseball, you can look it up on Wikipedia. It's a sport that does exist out there and is played in the summer.
It's derivative of cricket. Yeah.
Yes, and many of us are doing other things outside when it's happening. But that is
the oldest sport in the United States. Thank you.
It's what now?
The oldest sport in the United States.
The oldest sport in the United States. Well, I guess it's how you define sports, but sure, yes, we'll say it's a sport. Okay, ready?
Yes.
Here we go. So it's funny. My wife ordered me this thing for Christmas, and it has the date on it. Today is January. It literally is something. It's an electronic clock that says today is this, and this, just for the podcast. Love it. Hello, Hockey Buzz world. Today, I'll try this again. Hello, Hockey world. It's Tuesday.
No. Wednesday.
Been a week, man. All right. How about this? Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, January 22nd, 2020.
I'm Michael Agello, and I can't wait to get back to the impeachment hearings.
Life's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
When you think of it. Rest in peace, Terry Jones. Another member of Monty Python has passed away. I'm very sad about that.
I am, too.
Nah, he's a good one. And I'm Mac Lynn. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world now with less witnesses or evidence. Okay.
Let me start with the thing we were going to include in the pre-show because I think it's just good fodder.
Yeah, let's go with it.
Okay. NHL Network and NHL.com have come out with the game of the decade and now the goal of the decade. Okay. The game of the decade is asinine.
What's the decade for people who don't know?
What they chose as game of the decade was Game 7 of Boston versus Toronto in 2013. That's asinine. It's not even the Stanley Cup final. It's not a game that the team that won it didn't even win the Stanley Cup that year. It was a collapse by one team. And it's just a bad. I mean, it's just a bad choice. It's not Game 7 of Boston Vancouver in 2011. Or
I'm going to go with that one because we all thought it was going a different way, and like what was it like a minute later? It completely turned upside down.
Yeah.
So do I think that that NHL Network or NHL.com? I mean, they've done this with these lists that they put out. They're basically troll jobs that they're.
This is about as obvious a troll job as you can get, to be honest.
Right.
Like if you put out that game, which is probably the most hated game of the decade amongst fans who are your biggest readers, yeah, that's a troll.
Now they came out with the goal of the decade today, and you were at this game, I'm pretty sure. They called the Patrick Kane goal that won the cup in 2010 as the goal of the decade. And that's like, okay, nobody knew that was a goal except for Patrick Kane for about 35 seconds.
That I was at that game for sure.
I was there too.
This is like definitely another troll job. Philadelphia's got a big fan base.
It really is because we did all stand around for like literally 15 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds, not knowing.
Yeah, it wasn't like an exciting thing. It wasn't like there was like this. There wasn't this big. It was a bizarre goal. It was a weird way for a season and to end, and all that stuff. I thought that actually, if I was going to say,
Michael Layton was surprised.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to say something like that, that's if you want to go like that, to me, I mean, I've been to all the Stanley Cup Finals in this decade, and I've been to most of the games. I missed 5 or 6 of the Stanley Cup Final games in this decade, and.
Just by you saying that just shocks me that Michael Layton was in the game.
Before you give out the goal, I want to give out the greatest moment, and that was in LA when you walked on the ice with Google glasses on. That
Thank you.
You were literally bumping into players, and
that was the best.
It was great.
Yeah, hey, Greg Wyshynski, how you doing?
My buddy. Yeah, no, that was great. That was fun. Greg and I had such good times back then. Yeah, no. To me, the craziest Stanley Cup final game, if you just want to say that, like that was really crazy, still is the game where the Blackhawks win the Stanley Cup in Boston. That was
the Dave Boland, yeah.
Yeah, to me, that the turnaround of that game was the craziest because Boston had it all wrapped up. We in the press box literally had our computers on Southwest Airline ready to click buy the ticket to go.
Yeah,
and and you have 5 minutes to make this transaction. I'll never forget this. The transaction's counting down, and the game's got 2 minutes left. We're like, oh, this is going to be kind of, and then sure enough, we have to cancel it out because the Hawks scored twice in a matter of a minute, and it's over.
I think that's the game of the decade there because, like you said, it was everybody thought they were going to Game 7, and then all of a sudden it was Game 7 of the Leafs Bruins in reverse because the
right.
Yeah, I mean, it really was, and it was kind of like, but then again, like, how do you determine a game of a decade? Like, that is such a, I mean, to me, the most the goal of the decade and the game of the decade for me happened. Well, when was the first Winter Classic in 2009 or when was that?
2008.
Yeah, it would have to be playoffs. You would have to say.
I mean, the best game I ever went to was the first Winter Classic game. I just flat out tell you that was just in terms of everything that it was about. Like, it was, that was, and I've said it before. It's just like that was an incredible. So the best game and the best goal actually happened with the same player scoring on the same player.
As a Sabres season ticket holder, I had tickets for that game and sold them for costs to one of my. I didn't want to go out in the cold.
It's understandable, but I mean, no one knew what the Winter Classic was going to be about. Russ is like a Winter Classic junkie. So Russ, you're a Winter Classic junkie and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote the book. We're going to be updating it this year.
Yeah, so I mean, do you agree with me that was like one of the?
Yeah, it really was because it was the unknown. Right? When we got there, there was a little bit of signage. There was, one merchandise booth outside. I even was in the program, like I wrote something for the program, so I was all juiced up about that.
Yeah.
Mike Del Tufo and I, we walk in through the field level, and they're testing the pyrotechnics while we're walking through. Like, that never happens anymore. Matter of fact, the last time they tested them, they had to make sure we were outside of the stadium. Yeah. So, but we walked through to testing the pyrotechnics. None of us knew what to expect. We go to the media meal, and they literally just piled up a pile of hot wings.
I remember.
It was like a pile of like 100.
It was just an amazing. I mean, the whole thing, the fact that you really were flying, like that feeling of flying blind, like, and there's so much of hockey that when you go to it is, as much as we all love the sport, there's a repetitive aspect to this sport. There's no two ways about it. There's a pattern to, like, we've seen this before, we've seen that before, we've seen this before, and it does. I mean, you still can find joy in it and everything like that, but as a reporter, sometimes, I mean, and I'll say this about rumors too, absolutely boring as hell because there's a repetitive part to it. You know what I mean? But this,
I'll give you one step further too. So towards the end of the game, because Rich Stadium or whatever the hell they were calling it,
Ralph Wilson Stadium,
was far to get to the locker room. I left a little early so I could watch the shootout in the tunnel. So I'm watching the shootout in the tunnel, and I'm standing next to Drew Stafford, who was scratched in that game. And Crosby scores the goal. He comes off the ice. A little kid walks up to him. He high-fives him, gives him an autograph, and walks into the locker room. And it's like nobody was taking pictures.
I know. It's an amazing thing. And this is before all of that, right? Before 24/7, before and it's like it just had it all.
To it.
I mean, we went to the game, and I remember, and this is the doggone truth. An hour before the game, Russ, you remember in the press box, and they weren't sure whether they were going to play it. Like, it was like, because they're like, if it's going to snow that much, there was like all kinds of stuff, the concerns, legal concerns. What if somebody gets hurt? What if a player gets hurt in this game when it's snowing because of that?
I also think that they made it up on the fly that they would switch in between periods because of the way
they totally did. They totally did. Well, they were making everything up on the fly, which is what was so much fun about it. And they're at the whim of, like, the Buffalo weather, which is like the worst possible. Like, if they were going to put the Winter Classic somewhere, the one thing that I would have said, looking back on it, is that you shouldn't have put it in Buffalo.
I think what actually made that game so signature game was the fact it was the snow globe.
No question about it. No, I agree with you. I mean, the fact that it's snowing when Crosby's coming in, the fact that that as Crosby's carrying the puck up the ice and trying to drag the puck on the ground, snow's, he's basically shoveling snow on the way in with his stick.
I know
I mean, Russ,
My
remember?
camp was new.
I mean, Russ, remember that Heritage Classic between the Oilers and the Canadiens?
I was there.
That was a complete shit show because it was so cold that the ice was cracking. So
Yeah,
I mean,
not during the Legends game, but during the regular game.
during the regular game.
That to me is such that kind of stuff for a professional sport league like the NHL that has had that is definitely conservative by nature.
Right.
They really were throwing themselves out of their comfort zone in the Winter Classic.
Oh yeah, they did. They put it all on the line. Like
and the fact that Gary Bettman would allow that to happen is just real credit to him, because that's like the kind of
in the end result, had anything gone wrong with that game, everybody would have written about it the next day and just harpooned it.
Right.
And it was like as I'm there, I'm thinking this is either going to be the biggest success ever, or it's going to be the biggest disaster ever, and we don't know which way it's going to go.
Now, Funky goes back to our question about the decade, and the thing is,
there's one thing on this though. I definitely will, but I think that that to me the way that played out, the way there were like literally reporters in the press box cheering goals in the shootout and stuff like that. It was no question that whole thing of the Winter Classic that they always try to like they feed into playing outside in your old rinks and stuff like that. You didn't have to feed into it because it was just actually real. You could feel the whole thing. You felt like these guys were playing in their backyards, and it was and I actually wrote an article after that I thought it was so successful that it should become like that Buffalo should become like the Detroit Lions of Thanksgiving Day, that every New Year's Eve there should be a game in Buffalo, that should be the way that's done, and that's every New Year's Day.
The finances of it are really the hero, and that's why in the book we called it the NHL Savior, because coming out of the lockout and everything else, those finances that it started to create game after year was massive.
And I'm actually surprised that they haven't come back to Buffalo for it. They did it for the World Junior, and that actually was the biggest success of the World Junior in Buffalo. Yeah. At almost the detriment of the whole tournament, because people were saving up their money to buy individual game tickets for the outdoor game between Canada and the U.S. And then Finland versus Sweden, there's 2,000 people in the crowd. So that was the downfall of it. Now,
the best go back to the decade, Michael. You're saying the best Stanley Cup game I think I've ever seen. If it wasn't the game that we talked about with the Boston Chicago, which was just really bizarre, and the only reason I'll take it away from that is if that had happened in Chicago, it would have been more exciting. It was definitely a weird scene for the Boston fans to have to go through that. Like it was for the Flyers fans, basically. Those first two cups for the Chicago Blackhawks, they won in such weird ways. But the game I'm not sure. Funky Cosina will know in the chat room. I'm not sure which game it was. But it was in the Pittsburgh Penguins Red Wings series. I believe the first.
That's 08 or 09. That's not the decade.
Oh man, geez, I'm totally.
Okay,
sorry. I got to think now. I got to think about the decade more.
Yeah, Funky saying Crosby's goal in the 2010 Olympics. This is NHL. They're not talking about the Olympics.
Yeah, that is the goal. That was the goal of the decade for hockey. No question.
Right, but of course we can't see it because of the IOC and their idiocy. But but we can think about it and talk about it.
I mean, it's funny how these things are happening right before the decade.
Yeah, we're having Kevin on the show tomorrow, so maybe we can readdress that tomorrow. Do you want to touch on the rumor chart or something?
Yeah, let's get to the rumors, the rumor chart, and everything like that. The first thing I wanted to talk about was what I wrote about today, which is Kyle Palmieri, who was like a player who getting a little more information from a source I trust in New Jersey, who told me a little bit more about Shiro's firing and stuff like that. That I really believe that Shiro felt like it was going to take longer than 1 year, to get back. That the ownership was like, no, we need to be in the playoffs next year. That was kind of the thinking.
Well, we all knew that though.
Right. That's right. But further on that, that the Kyle Palmieri situation, which is like, okay, here's a guy who signed next year for 4.65, I think. And this year has 31 points in 48 games, who is a remarkable +4 on a team that's -47. That to me is an astonishing number.
Yeah. 4.65, and he signed through next year.
Yeah, think about that. A +4 on your, he's playing regular minutes on a team that's -47. That's just, how can that be possible?
He's a goal scorer in the league.
What was that?
He's a proven goal scorer. He's their best goal scorer.
16 goals, 15 assists. I mean, when you have that, like that kind of thing, flat out, you're great defensively. You can pass. And here he is apparently going to be available at the trade deadline. which I think is ridiculous. I don't think New Jersey should move him at all. But if he is available, to me, he jumps up to the top of the trade deadline players. Like, this is the best player you can get at the trade deadline for many reasons. Like, just
I don't know, him and Vatanen. I think it's close.
Yeah, and the Vatanen thing is really fascinating because right before Shiro was fired, I was talking to somebody else about Vatanen, and they were like, Vatanen was on the market, and they decided they're going to re-sign him and keep him there, and they think they're going to get able to get it done. So I still think that I'm still hesitant that Vatanen is actually going to get traded. But if Palmieri is traded, I don't think there's a better player out there that you can get.
No, and this is the thing. We've heard these rumors even before Shiro was fired regarding players on the Devils who have term that are available, like Miles Wood, like Blake Coleman, like Palmieri. There's been a lot of chatter about Palmieri and the Bruins because the Bruins want to make a deal like they did last year with Charlie Coyle, getting a player who's not a rental, but somebody who's got a year at a cost certain point.
Right.
The weird thing is though that if these things happen, even if they get good returns, I mean, the Devils are closer to being the Red Wings than they are a playoff team.
Yeah.
Well, this is the Josh Harris model, Russ. I mean,
the Josh Harris model sort of fluttered a little with the Sixers. Like, he went and did this with the Sixers, right, and then they decided to pick up the big names, and then they got rid of some of those guys, and they're still a playoff team because you don't have that many players.
Yeah.
You sort of have done the same thing with the Devils. They pick up Hall, whatever. It didn't work. So now if they go the other way, this is a different sport than the NBA.
Oh, it couldn't be more different. Russ. I mean, it couldn't be more different. Like,
I agree, but I think they still think they're going to do it because there's
no way of rebuilding the NHL like you're rebuilding an NBA team.
No.
It's not even close. I mean, and the teams that have even tried it have failed miserably at it, like that. You just can't. You can't bottom out. You really just can't.
And they're going to be close to bottoming out if they.
And I know that Elliot Friedman's made this point regarding the Devils. The Devils are the team right now in the NHL that comps the most tickets per game in the NHL.
Yeah, that's no shock.
That's exactly. But the thing is, when you're doing that, you're giving your tickets away for free for the sake of having people in the building. And if that's the case, and you're not making money, then what's the point of? I think they're going to burn it down to the wood and rebuild.
Okay, well, I'll give you two reasons. A, Josh Harris is a billionaire, and he makes a ton off the Sixers.
Right.
B, he is going to get his finder's fee for Seattle. That'll go straight into his pocket.
Right.
C, he is building up equity with the building and everything else to someday sell. Like, that's what the end result is here for him. Because he bought cheap. He bought it cheap.
Yeah, I think this is an investment type deal for him. I do.
And Mark Peterson in the chat brings up another name that's been out there for a little bit. It's Travis Zajac, and you'd think that he's an older guy and
trade the whole team, man. I mean, this is what's left.
He's an older guy and he's got a year left in his contract. But I have heard it mentioned that his old boss Lou Lamoriello might be interested in him with the Islanders, who have cap space if they're making a playoff run.
I mean, why don't they just call in Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes into their office and say, just start inviting friends to join this team. Like, you might as well.
And speaking of Jack Hughes for a second, I saw this on Reddit. It was a really good,
he's not in a trade rumor, is he? Please don't.
No, he's not. No, of course not. No, he's not in a trade rumor. This is not in a trade rumor. But can it be argued that he is having the worst season of a first overall pick in a very long time?
Who argued this?
No. Someone said that he's having. What?
No, we can't argue that.
He is, right? I mean, he is having.
No, he's not.
Okay. I mean, he's got 17 points in 40 games, right?
So you're going to try and tell me?
But looking at first overall picks and how they've done.
Okay, so Patrick Stefan did better.
No, in a long time. I mean, like in the 2010s, we're talking about decades. Let's say.
Okay, so we're just saying in this decade.
Okay, I mean, obviously McDavid, Matthews, Hischier.
Well, he went through it here. That is a really interesting thing. I'll put a link to it somewhere that we can check it out. But so Taylor Hall had 42 points in this, in the season, 42 points in 65 games because he was hurt.
I think Nugent Hopkins was in junior the first year.
He was.
Was he in?
Yes, he was.
Okay, yeah, because when he comes on, when his NHL season was 50, he had 52 points in 62 games.
Right.
Yakupov.
Yeah,
Yakupov, you thought about he had in his rookie season, he had 31 points
in 48 games.
48 games. I mean, like Yakupov had a really good rookie season. Really,
that was under Kruger. That was his one good year. Here's what I'm going to tell Reddit. Shut up, Reddit. All this is doing is you're trying to throw cold water on a guy and a pick that in 2 years you'll eat your words. It's just, to me, it's like, I don't even care.
Oh, I'm not saying for a second. I mean, when I look at the list of number one picks, in the 2010s, Hall, Hopkins, Yakupov, McKinnon, Ekblad, McDavid, Matthews, Heischer, Dahlin, and Hughes. I think that the only players I'd rather have than Hughes on this list are probably Matthews, McDavid, and Ekblad. To be honest, those are the three, and McKinnon. But just
Dahlin.
You could say Drouin.
I think Hughes Hughes is going to be, of that group of 10 players, is going to be middle of the pack. But that's a pretty talented group.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. I mean, look at Quinn Hughes. I just voted for the professional hockey writers that have midseason awards, and Quinn Hughes is in the Calder.
Remember this, Jack Hughes. I mean, Quinn Hughes played in the NCAA for a year. Jack Hughes came from the USHL and the World Juniors into the NHL.
Right. Massive.
I'm not. Listen, I love Jack.
I know you're not. I know. I
love Jack Hughes every which way, but you can't argue that point progression wise, he's having the worst.
Fine. Everybody on Reddit should get a computer virus today. I'm fine with that.
No, but he is. I mean, Russ. I mean, it doesn't matter how good he's going to be. We can already saw how good he's going to be. But he's having the worst season point production wise of anybody drafted first overall.
Well, I mean, you're talking about
it's just reality. It's not like
you're talking about an organization that added 3 or 4 players to a mix at the beginning of the year, has fired their coach and their general manager. You have to make excuses.
Oh yeah, no, you do have to do that. And Hirsch had a better season.
It's a rudderless ship.
Yeah.
No, I know it's not a fair thing to say, but it is reality. I mean, the reality is that's what's happening. And does this affect Jack Hughes down the line? No, I think he'll be an incredible player. I think he's going to be an amazing player.
No, just going back to Jersey, and we can move on to other subjects. I think they're going to trade Vatanen because Vatanen is a rental. They may trade Andy Green, but I don't know.
I think Green will get traded last minute
if he wants to.
Right.
Here's the thing I'll say about Vatanen though. I'm not like I say, I'm not only have some information that they're trying to resign him very badly, but I think Fitzgerald, who has spent time in the Nashville organization and all that, and has been in a situation, he's the kind of guy who definitely likes to build from the defense out. If Vatanen is happy there, which I've heard he actually does like playing there, then there's a reason that then
Are you saying they're negotiating currently, or we don't know?
No, I think they are negotiating currently.
Okay.
And whether or not they get it done or not, if they can't get a deal done, then they can trade him. Or they can go to him and say, "We'll trade you. You can come back."
Right.
The problem with that is that never almost.
What that means is more than likely his deal waits until probably the week before the deadline, and doesn't happen now.
That's what I'm thinking. But we're only 33 days away from the deadline, right?
So remember, this time last year, like today's the 22nd, on the 25th of January last year, the Leafs made the Jake Muzzin deal. That was the first big deal of the deadline.
Right. And and I do think, and I wrote yesterday that I really do believe that teams are going to move quicker before the deadline, that we're going to have, by the deadline, we're going to have very little to talk about, but that we're going to see.
Everybody's at the All-Star game. Don't think they're just talking about their wife and kids.
Oh, yeah, no, these 4 days are huge, because this 4-day break is not a break. That's how I lead my article today. It's not a break for the GMs. They are definitely going to be talking. This is a great time for them to talk. They're all, a lot of them will be at the All-Star game. So, there's places, there's a GM, isn't there the GM meeting at an All-Star game usually?
Yeah, there were GMs at the top prospects game last week in Hamilton. Russ,
there's plenty of time for them to really get that going. And the teams that I heard with Palmieri, just to finish the thought out, and I haven't put them on the rumor chart yet because I'm still not positive that this is going to happen. I have to get a couple more people to tell me that it is, but it didn't take long to find out, talking to people to find out teams that are interested in him. And basically you could say that, it's easier to find teams that aren't interested in him, of course. But the reason they wouldn't be interested is Palmieri will probably get you you're looking at a first round draft pick for him.
I don't think he's going to get you first.
I think
probably not this year. It won't be this year.
It's you're looking at you have to be a team that's first is like very bad, like a top team.
I still don't think it will be this year. I think if he were to get a first, It would be in next year's draft.
Yeah, 2021 conditional pick, or maybe somebody who was drafted in the first round.
Right.
You are getting him for this year and next year at a good rate. You have to remember that it's a 2-year rental kind of.
Like if it's Boston, and I've heard Boston in connection with Palmieri, you're gonna hear Vakanainen, you're gonna hear Saboro, Sedishin.
Isn't he from Boston College or something like that? Boston University.
I know I think he's from Massachusetts. Yeah,
I thought he was one of those. But I actually didn't hear Boston as one of the top teams. The teams I heard were Nashville, Chicago, Colorado, Edmonton, and Pittsburgh.
Actually, he's from Long Island, Smithtown.
Oh, he's a Long Island guy. Yes.
So
and he played at Notre Dame.
Okay, Notre Dame. All right, thanks. So there's five guys there. Nashville, Chicago. Chicago's a really interesting one because they're in the playoff hunt again all of a sudden, and they're only a few points out of it.
You know what it is? You get to the halfway mark, and Jeremy Colleton presses a button, and all of a sudden the Blackhawks become good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I still about buying in on that.
I know.
Duncan Keith and Jonathan Toews had a fight in practice yesterday. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, and that's part of the reason I'm not buying in on they're all of a sudden cured, because there are problems within that team, and I don't think even winning is going to cure it at this point.
Yeah, that's for sure. I know, I agree with you on that one.
Now, look, we could probably imagine what the problem is. Toews has picked up his play tremendously. Keith is having a horrible year.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I mean, if Toews comes in as like 80% of Toews, Boston's definitely in the playoff hunt. There's no two ways about it. They're already in the playoff hunt now. They're only like 3 or 4 points out.
No,
they're I think as close to the playoffs as the Maple Leafs are right now. When you think about it, so it's like kind of like they're really a team that could really move on pretty quickly.
Well, let's touch on the other thing that you.
Yeah, speaking of the Maple Leafs, the other trade that I heard, and I was really kind of surprised about this too, but. So I'm going to write about the Leafs thing this afternoon a little bit more in detail. I'm going to talk about what I've heard about the differences between Nylander and Kapanen, which is something I did. I talked to 3 people yesterday about at length to see, obviously the one they want to trade, the one they can trade is kind of, it has been kind of variable because like Nylander again is having a good season. And now they're like, oh, we should definitely hold on to Nylander. And then, Kapanen, I think at the end of the day, Kapanen is their chip that they're going to have to move. And what I heard was that they had severe interest in Brendan with an E, Dylan, but
here's the problem. And I wrote about this 2 days ago.
Okay.
First of all, Dylan is a pending unrestricted free agent.
That's a big part. Yeah.
Right. They have 3 pending UFAs right now in CC, Muzzin, and Barry. They only have 3 defensemen signed for next year.
Yeah.
So I do not believe that Kyle Dubas is going to trade for another rental, especially since he's traded 2 first-round picks in the last couple of years and some other draft picks as well to get Muzzin, to get to get rid of Patrick Marleau's contract. If they trade Kapanen, who last summer signed a 3-year extension, is making $3 million, and as you said in your column, he's a 20-goal scorer. He kills penalties. He's one of the fastest skaters in the league. You are not trading Kapanen for a rental. Even if you've talked to the agent and they say they're going to sign with you, you are not trading somebody who's 22, 23 years old,
and
who's locked up for somebody who can walk away in the summer for nothing.
I don't agree with that, but I think that there's more to this deal that I don't know about yet. And that's what I'm trying to dig. I'm trying to find out. Like, there's obviously something else to this. There's no question. Like I said, I'm trying to be clear about this is not a straight up deal for sure.
No, I
mean, we know they don't consult with Mike, or they wouldn't have gotten Thomas Plekanec for the second.
Well, that was another administration here, Ross. I mean, let's be serious here. No, Dubas is, and you see the signal from the 2 biggest deals that he's made. He trades for players who have term left. He did it with Muzzin. He did it with Barry. Kerfoot was under control. He is not trading assets. Now, he'll trade assets. I think he will trade one of Kapanen, Kerfoot, or Janssen, who are all signed long-term, for somebody who's under control, somebody who's of a similar age. That's why, like, when I threw out when the talk out there from Darren Drager last week that the Oilers were interested in one of their forwards like Kapanen or Janssen.
Yeah.
I said, well, Darnell Nurse makes sense. It would probably have to be a bigger deal, but Darnell Nurse makes sense because he's coming up on RFA. He's arbitration eligible. He's 2 years away from being a UFA, and the Oilers are having trouble getting him signed. And Dubas knows Nurse from Sault Ste. Marie. So does Keefe. That would be a smart ad and an ad that would make sense. If they're going after a rental, and I looked at San Jose to talk about like piecing together a deal, if you traded Aaron Dell and Brendan Dillon in a deal that included Michael Hutchinson and Cody Ceci, the cap hits are equal. The Leafs would definitely have to add a minor leaguer or a draft pick to entice San Jose to do that deal, but that would give the Leafs a different backup than they have right now, and a defenseman that would help them. But the only way they can do that is to trade money in for money out, and I don't see that happening.
These are all really good points, and I don't know how the money will work, and I try not to go there because if I'm told the rumor, I think that they might have a way. If they don't, they don't. There's a logical aspect to that too.
They're in a quandary because, like what Mike says is there's a lot of truth to it. There's going to be a point though where if they feel like they do something, they can make the playoffs, and if they don't, they don't. It's going to weigh very heavy on them to do something that's out of character. And it wouldn't shock me if they do something that's out of character because the race is so tight that I think the Leafs might have to blink this year and do something, because if they don't make the playoff, it will be hard to explain away. And
this is what I said in yesterday's column. Kyle Dubas, and maybe this can be done in the couple weeks leading up to the deadline, but Kyle Dubas has to be prepared for the worst case scenario, which is the Leafs falling behind so far that they can't get back in the race. With all the unrestricted free agents like Barry and like Muzzin, he has to be prepared for the possibility that they're not going to make the playoffs, and these guys, you shop them at the deadline to get value back for the draft picks that you gave up to get Muzzin and the prospects you gave up to get Muzzin and to get Barry in trades. So
here's the thing though about that. I think that you have a lot of pending. You obviously have a lot of pending UFAs and all that. You're right, Mike. That normally that's what a team would do, but I think they're definitely making a playoff. They're going to make a playoff run. There's no way they fall out enough to justify becoming crazy sellers. But
case scenario, right? Yeah.
But they also are relying a little bit on the fact that that players love playing there, and that they know that those players have a good chance of returning. They know that they love the coach now, and I think part of the coach's firing this year had to do with that too, because if you have all these UFAs coming back and with Babcock's the coach, it's much harder than it is with Sheldon Keefe.
And the funny thing is that I've heard that Tyson Barrie loves it in Toronto.
Yep.
But
but didn't earlier.
Right, exactly. But the problem is that based on what he is, the speculation is of what he can demand on the open market, there's no way for them to sign him. They cannot sign Tyson Barrie for $8 million.
Right. I mean, they're gonna have to go to these. What's going to have to happen is Dubas is going to have to go to these players and do what happened with the Crosby and Malkin situation back then, where you say, okay, if we're going to stay together, we got to figure this out. And we're all going to have to take something a little bit less and we're going to have to make it work. But if we want to keep this thing together, and that's why this season is so important, because they need to, if they have a good playoff run, that becomes easier. All these things become easier if they can get themselves, going, because players, they love to win and they love that. Playing in Toronto is fantastic already. If Keith is fantastic, Dubas is a great GM. And if you're winning, this is a really attractive place. There's no question about it. So.
And under Babcock, and we mentioned this before he was fired, the treatment of Spezza and a few other factors were turnoffs and that for that organization to be able to recruit veterans to come in for a little less.
Right. Okay.
That has changed completely under Dubas and Keefe. And the example I can cite is what happened with Ilya Mikheyev when he got hurt in New Jersey, with Dubas staying with him for 3 days, and his agent Daniel Milstein coming out and personally thanking Dubas for how well he treated Mikheyev. You don't think that that's going to be used and sold with every guy they try to recruit from the KHL?
Yeah, that stuff goes a long way. It goes a really long way.
The type of guy that you're working for.
It goes a long way. All right, let's get to the rumor chart, okay? Because of the guys, besides Palmieri that are influential, and starting with Tyler Toffoli, who this has been interesting because lately I've heard a lot about Calgary with Toffoli. I do like that fit for Calgary. Calgary is, currently I think in third place in the Pacific. They are not having a great season, but they're looking like a playoff team, and they could turn it around pretty quickly, I would think.
The Pacific Division is absolutely crazy.
It's horrible, but it also by the same token, there's going to be teams there's going to be a team in the Pacific Division that goes 3 rounds. It's kind of crazy the way you think about it. In all likelihood, you're going to have, or at least 2 rounds.
Yep. Vancouver's in first place at 58 points, and there are 4 teams at 57. 2 are 2 in second and third place. The other 2 in the wild card. So that's nuts.
Yeah, no, it is. It is absolutely crazy. So, Toffoli, the Islanders are a great fit for sure. But what Toffoli brings you basically is a guy who's won, Stanley Cups and been around winning teams. He's big. He's tough, which is like the kind of thing, that St. Louis last year, everybody's got to be big and tough now, right? Toffoli fits that mold. If you're going to go up against the Blues with the Bruins, if the Bruins had Toffoli last year, they would have had a better shot, that kind of thing. But I think Toffoli's being overvalued in a lot of ways too. So,
I think that's a symptom of a very thin class, and one team that's not on the list that I've heard from some other insiders has been Pittsburgh regarding Toffoli.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh could probably use him. Definitely, I think that would be a good fit for Pittsburgh. The Flyers are in there too. I think the Flyers are going to try to do something. They aren't on the rumor chart. I think this is the only place I have them on the rumor chart for any player.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they would have to trade Gostisbehere for him. And why would we trade Gostisbehere? He's got 3 more years of term for him.
You'd have to get more than him, but
you have to get more.
There's JG Pageau, who I've heard a ton lately about Colorado. So I think that trying to zone this down, because these guys, there's like 5 or 6 teams. They're all going to end up with one of those 5 teams. So it's interesting to play a lot of the same teams on this list.
And with the Avs, he wouldn't be playing center because they got McKinnon Kadri as the one.
Right.
He would probably either be playing on the wing in the top 6 or third line center. And that providing that kind of depth in your lineup would be really beneficial for the Avs.
And playing him with like skilled players, because he's that kind of guy, right? Like if he's playing with skilled players on the wing, with either on either of those top lines, you're looking at a guy who definitely can put up points if he's playing with skilled players.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if they could get Connor Timmins for him. If they could, that's a heck of a trade.
Yeah, and the one team on that list, I agree with the top 4. I think there's no chance in hell that the Sabres are buying. I think the Sabres are sellers, and that there's no reason for them to trade for Pageau because he's a rental and he would never sign there. So I don't see why Buffalo would be trading for him.
I think, and Buffalo has definitely fought. They were higher on this list as they become more, more like sellers. But I'm still hearing that they're not sold on the seller thing yet. So I can't.
Not yet. But I'll just say this: after the All-Star break, they have 9 of their next 10 games at home. Halfway through that it's from the end of January to the middle of February. In the middle of that, they'll know whether they're in the race or not. And based on what they've done in terms of being topsy-turvy, I think they'll be out of the race by then.
Could be. Vancouver's an interesting one to me. They don't have a lot of cap space. They definitely have a lot of centers. But I don't know. I am not quite sure on that one. I've heard Vancouver is going to be they're an intriguing team because they have.
Yeah, right now they're in it. So
they're in it, and they've got some serious talent, and that talent's getting more and more confident as it goes along. Chris Kreider, excuse me,
All-Star Chris Kreider.
All-Star Chris Kreider, right? Edmonton Oilers.
Now, Russ, is Panarin injured, or he just doesn't want to go?
No, I don't think he wants to go.
Okay, so he's going to miss a game then.
Way to go, Panarin. Just
I mean, he could have gotten injured in yesterday's game. I didn't get a chance to see it.
It's true that he's just not wanting to go. I mean, the players who turn down the All-Star game are dead to me. I'm gonna make that.
I mean, I don't know for sure, but I'm just guessing.
Yeah, I didn't know either. That's why I asked.
I mean, so I will find out. But if that's the case, then he is dead, especially after signing a contract like he just signed, for crying out loud. You know, like, I mean, you make that kind of money, at least give back a little bit. Good Lord.
I can't.
He's been there before.
I can't be mad at these guys because I'm
Can't be mad at them.
Believe that the All-Star game is just a waste.
It's not a waste.
I know why they do it. I get it, but for other people, it's a waste.
Here's the problem. I'll tell you what the problem is.
Yeah.
All they say is he's nursing an upper body injury.
Right.
And so we will never know how severe it was. He didn't play the other night, so he did miss that Islander game. Back in the day, Crosby would go, and if he couldn't play because he was injured, he'd still be there.
He'll be there, I know.
So I can't blame him.
Yeah, I don't know.
Crosby's the face of the league. It's different.
It is different, but I'm not going to pass judgment. I got to pan out more. But if any player is healthy that doesn't go to this, is just, to me, is completely wrong. If he's hurt, really legitimately, or just like on the edge of hurt and playing.
They said he was nursing, so clearly, to me, nursing isn't anything that's long term.
Yeah. All right, Russ. Let me ask you this question.
Go about Kreider. Right? Go ahead, Mike.
Right, about Kreider.
Yeah.
What do you think ideally Jeff Gordon is looking for in a deal for Kreider? A number one and something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he'd be looking for a number one.
I think he'll get a number one. I think he'll get a number one.
He won't get it from Edmonton, though.
Right. He probably won't get it from Edmonton. But I think that there's a number one out there to be had. It depends on what, maybe you get something better from Edmonton or just different from Edmonton, like a number two and some serious player.
And they need another center. So
maybe Puyarvi's involved in this, but in some way, shape, or form.
But they could trade Anderson for Puyarvi, so I think they could do that at the draft. I wouldn't think they're worried about that right this moment, but they're going to need a center, and it's a bottom six center, so it's not like too costly. So I think if you got that and a first rounder, even if it's a conditional sort of pick or a low pick, that's fine.
See, I mean, if you're talking Colorado, then it could be like a JT Compher and first.
Yeah, if they got Compher in a trade and either a first rounder or a first rounder next year, I think they would take that.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's.
I mean, Compher's a heck of a player, and he plays defense. He's really good on faceoffs. They need that.
That's true. I'll go with that.
In the chat says, oh, wrong one here. Funky in the chat says Bogosian would get hurt in an All-Star game. Funky, Bogosian gets hurt walking across the street.
Yeah, Bogosian's gonna have a tough time finding work next year. That's for sure.
It has to be an incentive contract.
Yes. And then Mike Hoffman. Okay, Mike Hoffman. This is a tough one for Florida to make if they make this trade. I'm still kind of shocked that they're even discussing this.
Honestly, with the way they're going right now, now they're in third place in the Atlantic, 4 points up on Toronto, catching up to Tampa and Boston. I can't see them trading Hoffman. Things are going too well right now.
They are going too well, and Hoffman has put up a lot of points recently too. I don't know. I continue to hear that there's something there that they know he's not going to be back, and they are trying to maximize it.
Right. I mean, in this instance, it makes more sense as an own rental to keep him because you need his goals, unless you're getting goals someplace else, unless you're trading for a goal scorer to replace him. And that's sort of tough to do. And
if you're moving him to the Islanders, like if you're moving him within the division, within the playoff possibilities, like you could play the Islanders in the playoffs. There's a possibility that could happen. That's like really a scary move. But that Lou Lamoriello is totally enamored by Mike Hoffman. He's the guy he wants more than any other, I was told. And I can see that. I mean, I could see that him being the guy, that for sure. I could definitely see that. Finally, let's go to one more on here. Jonathan Drouin. Okay, Drouin.
Oh, really?
I know people are shocked about this name up in there, and I was shocked when I heard about it too. But he is skating. He's skating. He's going to be back. Not immediately, but probably like 1 week after the All-Star break. So you're going to see 2 weeks of him probably before the trade deadline. You're going to see 2 solid weeks of him before the deadline. That would be fascinating to watch.
Now, the thing is, he's got 3 years left after this year at $5.5 million. So.
Yeah.
I mean, every time we talk Drouin, we look at Colorado because of him and McKinnon playing together and being a dynamic duo in junior. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially since Colorado's got cap space and they have the assets to make it so. And that would just make their, you could put Drouin on the line with McKinnon and then move either Landeskog or Rantanen down to the second line and make them even more effective and deeper offensive team. So
yeah, that would be a good move, actually.
That would be a great move.
Crazy. I mean, assuming he has that ability to do that at the NHL level, we don't know. I mean, the whole thing of the junior chemistry they had and all that stuff.
No, I think they do. Drouin's I mean, again, is he the worst 20-goal scorer ever? Like, people talk about him like he can't.
I know.
He has good skill. Like, he still has very good skill.
When you put him with the right players, like obviously McKinnon, who's not the easiest guy in the world to play with, he's got like a Crosby-esque thing where McKinnon plays kind of his own game.
Drouin is a victim of false expectations. He is
right.
He's a good player. He's a very talented player. He was with Tampa Bay. He was traded to Montreal at first to be a center, if you remember. Oh, he's going to be the number one center. Well, he's not. I don't think he's a center in this league.
Right.
So he in that context in Montreal, he's been a disappointment, and now he's had an injury problem this year. I think Montreal can sell. I mean, even though they're not in the best bargaining position, most value out of them, you've got a Colorado team that's got tons of assets. You're not getting Bo and Byram for them, but you might get a Timmins, you might get a first-round pick or a second-round pick or something like that. I think that's a deal that's beneficial to Montreal and beneficial to Colorado. The problem is Montreal can't get players to sign there, and they need players who are under contract who have to stay there through the term of their deal. And that's where I think they would ideally want to get a player who's extended or is controllable for a few years. That's why a guy like Timmins on defense might make a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I mean, he's at 0.61 points per game in his career.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's just people just
been considered like a disappointing career in a lot of ways.
It's not a disappointing career.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is not. But I'm saying
it's
been called that. Like people are calling.
Yes.
I also want to bring up one thing before we get out of here, and that is I have fallen in love with a goalie in the NHL. And
we already know it's Elvis. Come on.
Not Elvis. No, it's not Elvis. It's not Elvis. No, it's not. I like Elvis a lot. Don't get me wrong. I've already talked about Elvis, but
start saying "Love Me Tender."
No, there's a certain kind of style that I like goalies who play, and they're like my favorite goalie of all time was Pelle Lindbergh. And that just Tim Thomas had a little bit of that in him. I like Tim Thomas too.
I think it's about time that you start liking a goalie who's alive.
So I'm going.
Let's see if we can guess here. Let's see if we can
go ahead. Try to guess.
Okay.
In chat room, you guys can guess too.
Okay.
Now I'm going to eliminate.
Watching this guy play, he poke checks. He does all kinds of crazy, cool things. I'm
going to eliminate Georgiev because he's a Ranger, and you're biased towards the Rangers, so I'm going to eliminate him.
I'm going to eliminate Carter Hutton because he's lost 11 straight.
It's not Carter Hutton. That's funny, but no. I like Carter Hutton now.
It's not Tom Gibson because you have an irrational hatred for him.
I have a very rational hatred towards Gibson.
How about Tristan Jarry?
It's a good one. I do like him, but no, that's not him. And that's not him. He is taking it for it. You could end up seeing Murray in Seattle. That'd be interesting. But no.
Bada Bing in the chat says Samsonov.
No, although Samsonov is a fun goalie to watch because he's got lots of really cool. He doesn't play. He's close. But he plays a little too much. Like he reminds.
I'm going to go Jordan Binnington.
Nope. Binnington's fun though. Great guy, obviously.
He is. Fun.
I love his story, Binnington.
I know it's not Robin Leonard because Eck has already espoused his hatred for Robin Leonard.
I don't hate Robin Leonard. I actually like Robin Leonard. I actually have a ton of respect for him.
I'm joking.
What?
I'm joking.
I know. No, I don't think he's a great goalie.
You call Pecorine old, so it's not Pecorine.
And it's not UC Saros because he sucks. But
UC Saros is small, and they definitely need to get it back up there. But I'm not going to go there yet. It's not Elvis, but even though Elvis is number 1A, but I like Elvis a lot. He's number 2 on this list. But there's a goalie I will watch every time he plays now.
Ben Bishop.
No, Ben Bishop is really underrated. Yeah, he's the best American goalie right now in the NHL.
All right, Spill, give it to us.
Not Carter Hart either, who I do like. It is. You're wrong, Russ. It's Igor Shesterkin. I am like
Shesterkin. Okay.
I am this guy. I mean, I heard all the hype about him and all this stuff, and that you got. And I was one who said, you got to Georgiev, man. He's showing he can do it and everything like that. And but watching him play, I'm blown away. Like this, he just does things that goalies don't do anymore. And his reflexes are incredible, but his thinking is so far ahead of the play.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things about him that they're not kidding when they say that, they're going to trade Georgiev and because of him.
Yeah, his first 2 minutes of his first game, he made a headman pass that set up a scoring.
It's insane. He just does things that are just nuts, and he is so smart. You can tell he's so smart, and he is just his ability to. I mean, his flexibility. But like one little poke check he made the other night, and I forget what game it was. I was watching like 2-3 nights ago. He or right last time he played in goal, he made this poke check that on a good player, and he did it in a way that was so nonchalant. It was like, I mean, it was just incredible, like, calmness to him, and just bam, he just popped it up, and oh my gosh, just astonishing. I mean, he's dangerous. He's going to make the Rangers very dangerous. He is their best goalie right now, in my opinion.
And I don't think this is.
I don't disagree.
I don't think this is a bad situation for Jeff Gorton, because obviously when you have 3 goaltenders and all of them are capable, that's a nice thing to have. A lot of talk about Georgiev and what they're looking for. And I know, there's been connection with him in Toronto, and I know that Toronto has expressed interest in Georgiev, but the return that Gorton is looking for Georgiev is the return of a guy who can be a number 1. And that it's smart for him to shop him that way, because it's very possible he could be a number 1 someplace else. There are a lot of number 1s who have injury problems or are not playing very well, and that makes a lot of sense. But you're not going to get that out of Toronto when they want a backup for Freddie Anderson, at least this year, at least during the season, and their cap problems.
I mean, Georgiev cap issues are good. Like he's like, he doesn't really hurt you. I mean, he's not making any money, right?
No, but the value that Gorton is looking for in return is the problem for some teams. Some teams like a team like, say, if Colorado is not sold on Grubauer and they think Georgiev can be their number 1. I'm just using this as an example.
Yeah,
Colorado has the cap space to sign him long term and have the assets to acquire him. A team like Toronto, where Anderson's under contract next year, and they don't have as many assets and they don't have the cap space, that's not a good fit. So I think Gorton is either before the deadline or in the summer going to get what he's asking for Georgiev. It's just going to be a specific team, and I don't think it's going to be the Leafs.
Well, and they're playing him an inordinate amount now to shop him. That's obvious.
Exactly.
And they probably are waiting for someone to go down and someone to get very desperate.
Right.
Yeah, and I think you're right. They're right to do that. I mean, I've also heard though, flat out, that it's not impossible that they would keep 3 goalies next year. That they would.
No, they're not doing it next year. No,
I mean,
it go back.
This is the problem. They can keep 3 goalies on the roster, but after the start of the regular season next year, Georgiev loses value, because then the specter of the expansion draft with Seattle comes in, and they're between the rock and a hard place because they can only protect 1 goalie.
Yeah, Turkin's not going to sign on next year with 2 other goalies there. He won't. And
Lundqvist is not going to remove his no-move clause to get traded. He's either going to stay there and go be a 1A, 1B with Shesterkin, or he's going to retire. And I don't think he's going to retire.
Right.
Is it possible that he retires?
No, it's not.
You don't think so?
Nope.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I'm trying to find the highlight of that thing.
He's coming to grips now with that. He doesn't have a ton of playing time, but he is not going to retire.
If I have $8 million coming to me, I'm not retiring.
Yeah. I mean, and he doesn't have to retire, and he deserves.
It's a nice haircut.
He deserves that. The Rangers owe him that. He's been
a new guitar.
Yeah, he's been everything for them. He's stayed with them. He's stayed with them through thick and thin. But he's got to be looking at it and being like, okay, this is kind of.
Oh, he's not thrilled. I can tell you, he's not thrilled.
No, and he also has to be like flat out. This team is. He knows where this team's heading, and he's got to look at Shesterkin too and be like, oh my gosh, like this is like.
Okay, This is a good potential option here. Richard in the chat. What about Georgiev to Nashville as a long-term replacement for Rene?
That's a really good option.
That's a great option.
And I think that I could see happen. I mean, that's a team that just does make a ton of sense. Like I really would not be surprised at all to see that happen.
Rene is 37 years old, and I think Saros this year has proved he's not a viable number one option. I mean, meaning when Rene retires, him taking over as the number one. He's an okay backup, but I think that's his limitation.
I mean, but honestly, if they don't do that now and they wait till, let's say, the draft, then that's just to, sort of be nice to Rene, and it's probably a mistake. But I see that's probably what they're going to do.
Yeah, and Rene's got another year left in his contract, I believe.
Yeah. So you're kind of wasting another year of Rene if you trade for Georgiev, because then you're pissing off Rene.
Right. Yeah. And Georgiev is an arbitration-eligible RFA. So just think of this way. He's going to go into arbitration with 33 games last year, playing at a pretty good level. This year he's probably going to play close to 40. His stats will be a little worse because the Rangers aren't great defensively, but he basically is going to get in arbitration probably in the $2.5 to $3 million range, and
2.75, something like that.
And if you use the comparative to guys like Cam Talbot and Antti Ranta, who were backups in New York, who went other places to be number one, they got $4 million on 2 year on multi-year deals coming out of the Rangers. That's probably the range of where Georgiev is going to be paid.
Yeah,
I agree with that. Before we get out of here, what do you guys think? Looking at the teams that are right now on the bubble, okay, I've been thinking about this a lot. Like this time last year, St. Louis was starting to play better, but they were still out of it. But is there a bubble team right now that could win the Stanley Cup? That's my question.
Meaning outside of the top.
So let's look at a team that's either like a wild card team or just outside the wild card.
Okay.
As a bubble team, and tell me if they are, if one of those guys, if you see a Stanley Cup in any of those teams.
I'll say in the East.
Mm-hmm.
The only team, and this is conditional on them getting goaltender, would be Carolina, because I don't think they can win a cup with Mrazek and Reimer. They need to go out and get a goaltender. Supposedly they were interested in signing Leonard. If they got Leonard in a trade, although Chicago supposedly wants to sign Leonard, if they got a goaltender in a trade, I think they could challenge, because they got to the top four or got to the final four last year in the East.
That's an interesting one. Carolina. I think the Hamilton thing is so.
I mean, that does hurt, but the thing is that they can absorb that because they're so deep on defense.
I'll say that if Vegas were able to pick up a good defenseman at the deadline, it could be Vegas.
Yeah, that's kind of my team, I think, too. I think you really have to. The Vegas is just they're a sleeping giant right now.
I saw Nicholas Hag scored yesterday. That's good for them. He's a young defenseman. If they could get a good defenseman, Fleury is still really good, and he can make another run.
Yeah, it is. I think there's a ton that depends on Fleury. Fleury. That's obviously their whole season depends on Fleury.
Oh,
it does. So they may need a backup just like Toronto does. But if they could trade like an Alex Tuck for a Vatanen or something like that, or Matt Dumba supposedly is on the block in Minnesota, if they could make some sort of deal to get Dumba from Minnesota.
Okay, timeout.
Yeah.
Now we have to go and review. We're going to be like the NHL or the NFL, and we now have to go back and review the tape for Minnesota, because Minnesota lost Alex Tuck and Eric Haula. Yep. So they could protect Matt Dumba. Right. That's what Chuck Fletcher did. If they now trade Matt Dumba, just think about how horrible that has been for that organization.
Agreed.
Oh, it's been absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible.
And that's why, Russ, teams are not going to do the same thing when it comes to Seattle. They're not going to trade draft picks or extra players for another team to prevent Seattle from taking somebody. They're just going to say, take the guy. We'll give you something extra.
Right.
Yeah. Winnipeg's a good one too. Maybe some people are saying Winnipeg. It's a possibility.
I'm not calling it for Winnipeg.
If if Bufflin were to return, which I don't think is going to happen.
No, I don't think he's returning, but I agree.
I want to show you guys one. So this real quick before we get out of here, and then I do have to go. But let's see if I can get this right here. So here, this is not the poke check, but it happened in this game, the Rangers game, and I'm trying the Rangers Colorado game. But just the first 2 saves of this game are. I just want to focus on these for a second. Oh shit, let me get this back here so I can put it on here. And why I like this kid as a goalie. So here's. Okay, I can do this right. All right, here we go. No crap, go back. I suck. Why?
While you're doing that, let's see. Bardicus asks, do you honestly think Seattle's GM will have that hard of a time swindling folks a la McPhee? Yes, I do, because do you think anybody wants to have the situation that happened with
– Mike, you should have it back. I thought we should drop a beat for this answer.
I will tell you this.
On here. I mean, do you think you want to give up Jonathan Marchessault and Riley Smith like Florida did? Or, I don't think general managers are going to do that.
I will tell you this. I would be worried if I were a Flyer. I would be worried if I was a Flyers fan and we're going into that draft and they're in a cap crunch again, because then Fletcher might still do something similar to what he did in Minnesota.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That I think
that's a no.
Yeah, he could lose Gostisbehere as a. If they still have
an enticement to not take somebody else.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Ready? Okay, so this is just right off the bat. The first 2 saves of the game, and it's really interesting because to me, these aren't fantastic saves, but okay, this is just. But I mean, that's nothing to that. But the thing about it is like if you go with. Is where he's positioned on a 3-on-2 is like that's kind of he's out.
He's aggressive. He's very aggressive.
He's out really far. He's covering up his rebound and he's doing it. And everything he does with like just an ease about him.
And he'll have to adjust that accordingly when a little bit more of a book gets written on him, because teams realize he's that aggressive. All you have to do is pass to your winger and you got an open net.
But here's another one. Okay, this is another one. This is like a very like. Nonchalant. It's like even for a kid who's playing in his first couple games in the NHL.
Yeah, but he's not really a kid. He's 24 years old and he's played 3 years.
Yeah, the pressure, like there's pressure to this. I mean, I don't know. To me, I am very impressed.
I'm just glad we didn't have a show when I was 16, 17, because I would have said that about Doug Sotar.
There you go. All right, I'll try to find better examples for you guys. But anyway, we'll talk later.
It does.
Yeah. No, I don't know. That game was Elvis versus Shurkin, which is really something. That game was a fun game for sure to watch. If you want to watch a game, two of the definite future goalies in the NHL that are going to be dominant. All right, folks. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.